Ciaccona has been out for a pretty good amount of time now, so I think I can finally give my full conclusions on Ciaccona as a character. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about her performance within Tower, her performance within Whimpering Wastes, and then finally I'm going to be going past each point I made in my pros and cons video and see if I was right or not. So let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about Ciaccona's performance with any Tower adversity. When we're talking about a sub-DPS character, one thing is going to trump all, being which characters does this sub-DPS synergize with. It's at the core of almost every single sub-DPS's viability. For example, when we talk about Cantarella, we can say that she's pretty mediocre. This is because while she does have some synergies, primarily in the form of Jinshi, Donjin, and Carlotta, these synergies are either not her best in slots, or characters that aren't really that strong in the meta. If we look at another example, for example Zhezha, she is synergistic with both Jinshi and Carlotta, who are incredible DPSs within Tower, which overall makes Zhezha a better character than Cantarella. So how does Ciaccona compare? Well, Ciaccona's current synergies are primarily with Phoebe, Zani, GN, and DPS Alto I guess, but let's be honest, we're going to entirely discount DPS Alto here. The primary synergy that Ciaccona currently has is with Phoebe. This is because in her ultimate state, she's capable of applying Spectrofrazzle incredibly frequently. And it's not just about the fact that it's frequent, it's also just about the fact that this application is multi-wave too, which is very useful for Phoebe. One annoyance that Phoebe used to have is that if you killed a wave of enemies, you had to swap into Spectra Rover to reapply Spectrofrazzle, and this can be quite annoying, especially if you don't want to turn on your brain and just want to press the funny buttons. Spectra Rover is also just an annoying character to use, with your heavy attack being more easy to miss than it should be, as well as the skill sometimes just missing as well, and the AoE on the Frazzle application is a bit questionable at best. So overall, Ciaccona is a very huge upgrade over Spectra Rover in terms of quality of life. Phoebe's teams with Ciaccona consistently outperform the teams that do not have Ciaccona. Ciaccona has an incredibly fast rotation, good damage output, and incredible convenience. So overall, I'm not shocked by the fact that Ciaccona is going to be a new best-in-slot teammate for Phoebe. There's also GN and Zani. Zani is, I'm gonna keep it real, I don't really like this synergy. Ciaccona does not have any buffs that Zani would truly appreciate the way Mortefi does. And because Ciaccona's application happens over time instead of just instantly like with Spectra Rover, you're not really able to use all of your Blaze on the first rotation, and have to wait for the second rotation in order to really use up all that Blaze that you generated. So while it does work, honestly, I'm not really that impressed with Zani and Ciaccona. And when it comes to Ciaccona with GN, honestly again, I'm not super impressed. I really do prefer the Mortefi team. Although I'm gonna have to be completely honest, this is not Ciaccona's fault. Ciaccona is not the reason that this team doesn't feel good to use. It's all Arrow Rover's fault, I'm telling you man. Arrow Rover is the scourge of all erosion teams, and we're going to feel it when we get an actual area erosion DPS. Next up, let's talk about Ciaccona within Whimpering Wastes. And honestly, I think that this character within Whimpering Wastes is pretty funny. I'm gonna keep it 100% real with you, because Ciaccona managed to solve the singular problem that Phoebe had in this game mode, meaning that she is now one of the better options if you're trying to clear Whimpering Wastes. You see, Phoebe has almost all of the tools required to be good in Whimpering Wastes. First of all, she has good AoE. Second of all, her damage is consistent throughout her rotation. She is also capable of stalling enemies in place and grouping them, meaning that for Whimpering Wastes, this character has almost all the things you need. But the one issue that she had is that a lot of Phoebe's damage is lost if Spectrofrazzle's not on the enemy, meaning you constantly had to swap to Rover to reapply Frazzle, or you had to play her in dual carry teams. But with Ciaccona, that's a thing of the past. One thing that I put a lot of emphasis on for Ciaccona when I was first talking about her in my pros and cons video is that she is capable of applying damage over time in multi-wave. Because this is the thing that would make DOT teams a lot more comfortable to play in Whimpering Wastes. Multi-wave actually matters now, and because negative statuses have to be applied to the enemy, rather than being a buff that you give to your characters, it's a bit unreliable in multi-wave. But now because Ciaccona is capable of applying Spectrofrazzle specifically, Phoebe is a lot better in Whimpering Wastes. Additionally, Ciaccona actually has grouping of her own, through her Forte Heavy attack, which is used near the ending of her own rotation. So not only is Ciaccona a really strong character, when it comes to making Phoebe more reliable, she's also capable of grouping herself, which is incredibly nice. The AoE on her ultimate is also incredibly appreciated, as it's way larger than almost anything in Spectral Rover's kit, the only thing that really competes being Spectral Rover's Liberation. So overall, Ciaccona was a massive upgrade for Phoebe in terms of Whimpering Wastes. But even with the other synergies like with Zani and Jien, Ciaccona is still a good option. While using Phoebe for Zani is better than using Ciaccona, and while using Mortefi for Jien is better, Ciaccona is still a pretty good alternative if either of those units are on a different side. Or in the case of Phoebe and Zani, I guess the more realistic outcome here is that you simply do not have a Phoebe to use. So overall, I'd say that Ciaccona is actually pretty good in Whimpering Wastes. I've even seen people use her as a DPS, and that seemed to work out, so yeah, Ciaccona gets the Thundah seal of approval. And now I'm going to talk about all the points I made within my pros and cons video, and seeing if I was right about them or not. So first of all, let's talk about the fact that Ciaccona is in fact our premier Arrow Erosion character. There's not really that much to say about this point, it's just true. Ciaccona has the 100% amplification on her outro, she is the only character capable of applying Arrow Erosion on her own, so yeah, it's very clear, Ciaccona is going to be an incredibly large upgrade to any team that focuses on Arrow Erosion. Even if the character themselves are not directly dealing erosion damage, Ciaccona still is capable of buffing the Arrow Erosion that is being applied by a very large amount. And in any team that puts a good amount of focus on erosion as a mechanic, Ciaccona will be the best in slot, with no ifs, ands, or buts. Ciaccona will just be the best here. Then there's also the fact that Ciaccona works with Frazzle. A lot of this video has been me talking about Phoebe, because Phoebe is one of Ciaccona's best synergies at the moment. So I doubt I really have to go further into the fact that yes, I was right that Ciaccona is incredibly good even with Frazzle, because, well, I've talked about it enough. Phoebe and Ciaccona is one of the best duos for Phoebe. So really there is not that much to expand upon, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I also mentioned the fact that Ciaccona's multi-wave DOT will help a lot of characters out a lot in Whimpering Wastes. And as I've also already said in this video, this is true. Ciaccona was a massive upgrade for Phoebe for Whimpering Wastes, meaning she is now one of the best contenders. So yet again, I was right. I also said that she had generalist arrow damage buffs, which while she does have those, they make less of an impact than I feel like they should. I feel her signature weapon, Woodland Aria, is a lot of the supportive quality that I mentioned for Arrow. The Gusts of Welkin set and Ciaccona's 24% arrow damage bonus are not good enough to really say that Ciaccona is best in slot with any current Arrow DPS, so it really does seem like Ciaccona's primary synergy will be with Arrow Erosion characters, as well as some specific Spectrofrazzle characters. So while I was technically right on this, I wasn't as right as I expected to be. Also, I said that Ciaccona has grouping. While it is nice that she has grouping, and it is near the end of her rotation, which makes it better for your DPS, the primary DPSs that Ciaccona synergizes with already have really good AoEs, so they didn't really need the grouping. I guess we'll wait for a character that kind of does want the grouping, but currently it's more of a side thing than like a main reason to get Ciaccona. There's also the fact that I said that Ciaccona doesn't need her signature. This is very true. Static Mist is a good weapon, but oh man, Woodland Aria is a massive upgrade, so I still suggest getting it if you want to invest further into Arrow Erosion. Arrow Erosion itself doesn't scale off of any stats, so Reshred is one of the better ways to buff it. And if we ever get a team comp that focuses on the damage of Arrow Erosion itself, rather than a character that just counts as erosion, Woodland Aria is going to be an incredibly good upgrade for it. I also said that application takes time when it comes to Ciaccona's DOTs. And while for Arrow Erosion, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, for Frazzle it definitely can be a pretty big deal, especially for Zani. I've already mentioned how this makes Blaze generation on the first rotation a bit more awkward, so you already know what I'm talking about. And then I also said that Ciaccona doesn't really replace Phoebe for Zani, which kind of just expands upon that other point, where Ciaccona isn't really that good of a synergies for Zani, even though it does technically work. So, again, I was right here. But what do you think of Ciaccona? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description below. I'm pretty active in there, so there's a pretty good chance I'll answer your question if you ask it. But that'll be all from me. Peace.